Welcome, everybody. This is kind of a recap of our literacy leadership team meeting that was held on October 24th. I had intended to just send out a link to the recorded meeting from Zoom, and that is not going to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of quickly go through and recap the meeting for those of you that weren't there and for anyone who wants the notes. So the first thing we did as people came in, as you can see, we went to the bit.ly down there in the bottom right hand corner and added our definition of literacy to a Padlet. So if you haven't done that, that would be awesome for you to go ahead and do. So you can pause this video at any time, do the task, and then come back to it. So I'm going to keep going. The second thing that we did is we spent about 15 minutes, which was not nearly enough time, but reading the grant narrative just to get some background information about the grant itself as we're looking at it and using it, since that's what we're focusing on clearly. Also had some time looking at, I gave some updates about letters training at the elementary level and 95% group at the elementary level. These are two things that Linda Boxberger is putting into place. And actually, I just got back from a meeting, this is new news, that preschool is also going to look into using some of 95% group's materials for preschool. So we are definitely looking into continuing that 95% group, maybe figuring out who is the best target audience for that training and what the best use of it is for us. But it is definitely research-based. It is a really strong program supported by our some special ed, the director of special ed, and just in my knowledge of dyslexia and reading struggles, it's definitely something that fits the bill, I think. Letters training is all kind of connected to the 95% group in a way. That training is built in, not built in, I'm sorry. That is kind of the background information about reading, and it is important information to have, very helpful to have, but they also provide some things in terms of like what you could do to take back to your classrooms. My understanding is that special ed teachers at the elementary level have been trained in letters training. And so I'm going to look into that for secondary. 95% group at the elementary level has only been introduced, I believe, in some of the title buildings, possibly all of them, but I'm not quite sure. And they are working through kindergarten and first grade teachers, and I believe some ELL teachers as well. So, but don't quote me on that because I'm not quite sure. So there's a couple of directions we can go with 95% group if we choose to, and I am looking into that. But it's more, although intervention focused, we might look at it at the secondary level, at least at the middle school, either intervention or kind of whole group instruction that provides intervention for our struggling readers until, as I talked about, we get to that point where all of our kids we're seeing have already been through 95% group instruction or intervention at the elementary level. So we're going to kind of see where we go with that. And then Linda and I just recently visited a school in New York City that serves the projects and Chinatown. And it was a pre-K through 5 school, and they work with Teachers College of the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. And that Reading and Writing Project is out of Columbia University, and it's the Teachers College at Columbia. And very much research-based, research-backed approach to teaching. And it was just amazing to watch these kids do what they do. We saw mostly writing instruction and writing activities, and they use the workshop model, but they also implement a curriculum written by Teachers College called the Units of Study. So the Units of Study are given through the workshop model. So it's kind of a two-part component there, but these kids just were writing and speaking well above where a lot of our kids are, and here they are from the projects in Chinatown. And so it was a pretty fascinating and exciting visit, and I hope maybe we can capture it somehow and bring it back to you on video, or maybe that principal we partnered with would do that for us. So let's take a look. I'm going to kind of backtrack just a little bit and show you what the group shared out after reading part of the grant. So they saw that there's Mastery Connect there, and we did spend some time talking about Mastery Connect. We didn't get into the weeds about it though, because we're just not ready for that implementation. We have a couple of pilot schools that are going to do that, but that's actually somewhat separate from the grant. And so we're letting the assessment department kind of drive some of that Mastery Connect stuff, and then we will kind of tag into that as we get further along. But it's basically a formative assessment tool for us to track what we're doing, kind of a one-stop shop in essence, and standards based. So but we'll get into that as we get closer to it. And then they also noticed it talks a lot about making data-driven decisions, that there's training on interventions, which is where that 95% group and letters might be coming into play for us. An attempt to standardize the district is kind of where we're going, at vertical alignment of sorts. Pre-K to 12, I think, is where we're looking, and that's where you can say you can see the PK to 12 connectivity there. Okay, so those were some of the takeaways the group shared. Then we took a look at our notes from last time when we met, and there were some questions for each of the subgroups, and some of the common questions we had were, what is currently being done? What do we do well? What needs to change? And what training do we need? So I just thought I'd show you the share outs from those groups, or from the group. So our current reality right now is we're beginning to align to standards. We're beginning to try to find intervention time. It's really hard at the secondary level, and so just trying to figure that out. We do currently have Read 180, and of course System 44 goes along with that. Social studies is really working on primary and secondary sources. An interest and value in choice, I think that's coming a lot out of the ELA department. Consistency in the writing assessment, we've been working through that. And then credit recovery, we have that involved, and utilizing map data. We feel like what we're doing well, that's why primary sources on the left-hand side there under current is starred. Was one thing that the people from social studies thought we were doing pretty well, is looking at and utilizing primary and secondary sources. So you can see we also thought bringing in resources was a good one, that we have a lot of opportunity for professional development and support from administration to personally find professional development in our choices. Language arts textbooks tie to the standards, but we're also including choice in there. Lots of teacher autonomy, and that we have increased our PLC time. Okay, what needs to change was a longer list. We need dedicated writing time, reading specialists, more training for interventions, electives, and everyone. Really, we came down to that. An elective person had shared that first, and then we went to everyone. Working on strengthening our cross-curricular ties, vertical alignment, which fits with the grant. Streamline standards, we're getting there. We're going to start that work on Monday. Really learning about the science of teaching and clarifying what the science of teaching is and making that a bit more standardized, and then allowing for the art of teaching to be that component of choice. I hope I'm speaking to the person. I hope I'm paraphrasing what that person said there for you well enough. Technical and professional writing is needed, and a way to get our students to be stronger in that. Public speaking, helping teachers know how to use data, and that's going to go with the Mastery Connect. It's going to take a lot of training and a lot of things to walk ourselves through to get to where we can utilize that tool at its utmost. Addressing how reading has changed over the course of time. If I can speak to this person's viewpoint, what they were saying is, our current reality and our students' current reality is you read a little bit and then, you might be off on a video, or it's quick reads. And how do we address that change in our classrooms? And is there a need to shift to that? or continue to build stamina in reading longer pieces because the rest of their reading lives are spent in short bursts. So just more of a question to grapple with, I think. The ability to analyze what they read. Students need to be better in that, and addressing access to books and materials like our core lit. We just talked about our core lit lists in ELA are quite dated. So taking a look at that. The training, workshop, and Teachers College, if that's the direction we're going to go, it is written into the grant. So it's definitely something we're going to have to look at, take a serious look at, and put into place. Discipline-specific writing, interventions, assessment writing, just that goes with that Mastery Connect piece and how to use data. We have to be able to write good assessments in order to make that tool work as well. And then differentiation, just how to help our ELLs in our classrooms and even our struggling readers in our classrooms. So that is a brief recap of the share out that we did as a group. Then I took some time to explain the structure a little bit, at least how I'm looking at it for now. So last time we met, not yesterday, but the first bigger meeting that we had, we divvied up into these subgroups. So we've got intervention, SPED and ELL assessment, literacy across disciplines, and core instruction. So first of all, I want to clarify, for our purposes, literacy across the disciplines is going to be addressing literacy in everything, in all classes except ELA. Okay, and then core instruction is going to be our core literacy instruction happening in English language arts classrooms, just for our purposes, to kind of give us that dividing line a little bit. So in those subgroups, part of the grant says that the literacy leadership team will be looking at data and making data-driven decisions. And so sometimes we're going to be looking at data that isn't necessarily what we put into place in our own classrooms as the literacy leadership team. It might be we're looking at results from a group that has put it into place, or a building that has put it into place, right? So in your groups, that's where you're probably going to, that's where you're going to do the studying of the data, looking at the results, and helping make decisions. And maybe it's, hey, we need to research something else. We got to change course here or whatever. Implementation in the classroom, I think, makes sense to actually be implementing anything new within our own content areas or our own daily classrooms. So SPED and ELL, we're looking at letters training for them, possibly finding a book study that's specific to strengthening their instruction. ELA, again, a book study. Teachers College of Reading and Writing workshop model, units of study, taking a look at that. And like I said, I'm not quite sure where I'm sitting yet, but letters training or 95% group for some, for all, for no one. I'm not quite sure there. And then content areas, a book study, and specific strategies for content area teachers. Things that can really elevate what you guys might need as you become literacy experts in your own content. Okay. And I also talked about how we must constantly keep sustainability in mind. That's one part of the evaluation that will come into play, is how do we sustain what we're doing and what we choose to do. So then I asked if anybody would be interested in helping look at the literacy standards on Monday. I know it's a short turnaround time, from 3:30 to 4:30. I really want to start that important work, and I don't want just ELA teachers on that team. I want eyes from other content areas. So I am definitely in need of some science and social studies. And I didn't get any math people signed up either. So if you're willing to show up on the 29th, please just let me know, and we will, we're going to be at the IRC. So I think number 2, I've pretty much taken care of. So that's kind of taking a look at 95% group and being willing to maybe implement some things to see if it works. We can study the data. Okay. A couple of slides we didn't get to, so I'll go over it again later, but goals. Year 1 goals. Let's establish our needs, which we're starting to get there. Build a knowledge base. So building up each of your knowledge bases in terms of literacy, and then putting our learning into place and monitoring our data, monitoring the results that we get. So that is a recap of the hour-and-a-half long meeting. If you missed us or you weren't able to be there, no worries. hopefully this catches you up and we'll get to you. Hopefully we'll see you soon. All right. Thank you.